In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to set up data protection on demand using the Universal Client in conjunction with an existing on-premise HSM to set up a high availability HA group. In this case, a hybrid HA group. So let's get started. In my environment, we have set up already a Luna HSM partition. This will be our Luna 7 HSM. It's on-prem, it's initialized, and I already created some keys. So there should be an RSA 4096 key pair that's created, so 2 keys in total, and an AES symmetric key. So total 3 cryptographic objects on the partition. So this will be our starting point, and it's already set up. Our goal would be to set up HA and then replicate these keys over to DPoD. In DPoD, I'm going to set up my new partition for the first time, my new service. So I'll give it any arbitrary name, in this case, College HSM service. And for the purposes of our exercise, I'll disable FIPS. All right, so I'm going to create my service client. It's going to package all the necessary certificates and all the necessary connection information to DPoD. I'll call it service client 1. It doesn't actually matter. And once it's prepared, I'll pull it down to my local Windows machine here, which is acting as my client. So what I'm going to do is make a temporary directory. I'll call it DPoD. It doesn't need to be called DPoD, but just for purposes of our demo, I'll make it DPoD. And we're going to extract the contents of my service client. Now that we have that done, we need to check what else do we need. So these 3 certificates that you see here, one of them is for the TLS session, another one is partition origin certificate, and so on. We need to get that into our existing Universal Client install. Beforehand, let's extract the rest of the DPoD client. We'll open up a new command prompt window, and we'll run the setenv script. What this is going to do is set up the Crystal-Key INI configuration file and all necessary parameters that we need. Now keep in mind that we're going to take the information from here as a reference, okay? So the one that's going to be on one end of our Notepad++ window will be the DPoD configuration. The other one will be the existing Universal Client that I installed, as you can see here. So left is DPoD, the right is the existing Universal Client. From there, we're going to copy over those 3 certificates to the program file SafeNet Luna Client cert client directory. Now, just because we copy the certs over, it's not enough. We actually need to update the existing Crystal-Key INI configuration. So we'll take note of the path, and we're going to copy everything for the XTC section. Just paste it here at the end of the file. As you can see, the certificates are pointing to the wrong path, so let's update it. Make sure the syntax is right here depending on the system that you're using. This will make or break the setup for HA. And you need to be running in admin mode or else it won't let you. We're also going to take all the REST information. This is very important. So we're going to copy everything over that's required to connect to DPoD, and as well update the server-certificate.pem file location, which is in the same one as the other 2. All right. And the last one would be the plugin module directory. And this is also required to connect to DPoD. In the future, all of this will be pre-configured and automatic, but in the current version of Luna Client, which I'm testing on is 10.1, this is required. So you can see the plugins directory is here. So let's make sure the path is correct. And that's it. So that file is saved and configured. We generally should be good to go from this standpoint. So we'll close out of that existing one as well. Our last step would be to configure the crystal key configuration path environment variable. Now that was set automatically by DPoD using the setenv script. So we're going to have to point it to the correct location for the crypto key DLL. I'll go into Windows into my environment variable for the system as well as for the individual user. So I'll put in the correct path. Click OK. And I'm going to close out any existing shell sessions just so we don't get any confusion and any conflicting variables. The original DPoD directory I created, the temporary one, I can now delete. We don't need it anymore. So that part is done. And now we can move on to the next step of the process, which is opening up a new command prompt window and seeing if we can even communicate and see the DPoD slot in Luna CM. For the first time, it will take a little bit to load, and then you will see two partitions, two slots. One of them is not initialized, which is the CryptoVisor one, which is DPoD. So we're going to initialize this partition. So we'll set our current working slot to slot number 7, which is our remote HSM, and run the partition init command. I'm going to give it the label of DPoD HSM partition, just so it's easier to track and differentiate from the other one. We'll set up a partition security officer, and we're going to configure the same cloning domain. So we're going to set the same cloning domain that is set up on the on-premise Luna for our DPoD partition. Without having the same cloning domain, we won't be able to clone keys from one partition to another. Very important. Okay, so now we do a slot list, and you'll see that the DPoD partition is now initialized. As you probably remember, there's still a couple steps still to complete, so we'll log in as the partition security officer and run the role init command to initialize the crypto officer. We'll give it its temporary credentials, but remember that we need to change it upon first login. So we'll log out, log in for the first time as the crypto officer, and then run the change password command. And for H8 to work, we want to make sure that the crypto officer password is the same as the one that is set up and initialized on the Luna HSM. Okay, so that's done. You'll see there's no contents in the partition, but the crypto officer is initialized and set up correctly. So now both partitions are set up and configured and ready for HA. So I'll run the HA group create group command, and we'll add slot number 0, the Luna HSM partition, as the primary member of this HA group. And that's recommended for performance reasons. You always want the on-premise box as your primary member. Choose to copy and propagate existing objects for the group. So we have 3 existing objects that we're going to migrate over for HA. And you'll see it has been added. 3 slots will now be listed: the Luna HSM partition, the DPoD HSM partition, and now the hybrid HA group, a virtual slot. The next step is to add the DPoD HSM partition, slot number 7, to the new HA group. Enter the same crypto officer password. And that's it. You'll see that the DPoD HSM partition was added as a standby member, and this is recommended because it will have all the existing and up-to-date cryptographic objects, but it will not serve active requests unless all primary and active members go down. We'll run an HA group synchronized to make sure it can get the most up-to-date key material. The sync is now complete. Let's verify this with our DPoD partition as our current working slot. Log in using the crypto officer. And then run a partition contents command to see the contents. In this case, we have 3. So the same 3 objects from before, the RSA key pair and the asymmetric key, have been replicated successfully. This concludes this video tutorial, and I hope it was helpful for you to better understand a hybrid HSM setup with DPoD. Thank you.